Hello, my delicious co-creators. Lilou here. I'm in Bali. Amazing, beautiful, warm, sunny Bali at the Bali Spirit Festival here, happening end of March, beginning of April. This is recorded actually the 1st of April, and it's gonna go all around YouTube, I'm sure, because of your energy and the wisdom we're gonna share in this video, Suzanne. It was great to see you performing on the first night, and I really look forward to discovering your, what you went through to be at this place in your life where you can share the sacred and you can invoke the sacred. I'm particularly interested to talk about that topic. How can we invoke the sacred in our life? And I guess you haven't always been there. Huh? It's not an easy. It's not. How do you get actually to this point where you can and authorize yourself and give yourself permission even to invoke the sacred?
Yeah. Well, it's a great question, actually, because I believe that in this moment in time, it's important for all of us to be our own spiritual authority. And I mean that in the best sense of the word, not dissing what has gone before, but really taking a look at the global culture right now, because the global culture right now is rising up with a certain spirit of awakening that's non-denominational. It's not attached to one particular tradition. It's actually a global culture. And by that, I mean global spiritual culture. And we're at this precipice point on the earth right now. Things are heating up.
Shaking?
Literally. And so it's important for us to understand that there has been so much that's come before that is so valuable to us, and we're so privileged to have access to it. And yet at this moment in time, it's up to us to help create a global culture, a global economic culture, a global political culture, a global artistic culture, a global spiritual culture. And luckily, that's happening. And so I believe that it is time for us to really imbibe, drink up what has come before and integrate it into the now and evolve it forward. And so that's the way I'm thinking about it at this point. I have a long history of studying different traditions, but not affiliating with any one. And I think that's helpful because it helps me kind of extract, hopefully, what works from various different rituals and ceremonies with full respect. I don't mean to be appropriating anyone's depth, but certainly like extracting universal truths and then hopefully offering them forward as gifts to what evolves and comes from the next generation.
I saw that part of your titles, if there's such a thing, is priestess, and there's so many labels out there, like some are shamans, avatars, priestess, goddess. How are we? Why are you called the priestess? And are we all priestess actually, or goddesses, or is it something specific? Because there's also mystic. I'm wondering about that.
Another great question. I would never call myself a shaman, nor would I ever call myself a goddess.
Oh, you are. Come on, we are.
But I wouldn't.
You are too.
I think labels are really interesting. And part of the reason I call myself a priestess is because I am actually trained in ritual arts. And I've worked with a couple of very strong traditions in ritual arts for 30 years. So I'm actually an elder in one of my traditions and train people in that. So for lack of a better term, I'm interested in, especially women, the divine feminine rising up and women stepping into positions of spiritual leadership. There is no great word for that. Priestess is very limiting. And yet it's the only one I've found that actually sort of says it. I'm just dedicated to creating ritual and trained in creating public ritual for large groups of people. And so, when people ask me, what do you do? And I say, okay, the best way I can describe what I do is my job is to remind us that we're hardwired for self-expression in community, and that we have, in many cultures, civilized ourselves away from self-expression. So that's part of what I teach, is I teach people to find their voice and speak their truth and live their truth and be unafraid, normalizing self-expression because it's inherent in our DNA. But to do that in community changes everything, like not just in the privacy of my own home, but actually to come together as community and learn how to re-sacralize through our voices, through our bodies, through movement, through sound, through ritual, through the sacred container. And that's what I try and do. And again, I'm not only coming from one tradition. I'm trying to include many traditions with respect, as I said, with respect. And I talked about this at the concert, like if we are going to become that global culture, if we are going to borrow from deep and ancient traditions, there's this idea of reciprocity. Any culture that we incorporate into our daily lives, we also must as sacred activists, give back. And I think that's the reciprocity piece is important, because in this new age culture, there's a lot of appropriation. There's a lot of stuff that doesn't necessarily go deep and is just kind of taking without giving back. And that's one of the things about Bali Spirit Festival that's so wonderful, is they're deeply entrenched in the community. They're offering service projects, and they're sort of being a part of the sustainability of the local culture, and that is a crucial piece as far as I'm concerned.
Is there like specific mantras or prayers or things that we can do in our daily life to kind of invoke that sacred that you would recommend, that we can authorize ourselves to do instead of giving kind of this power away? Like, it feels to me like this is time, as you said, to embody that now.
Yeah. Again, I would hesitate to say this mantra. That's not really what I do. What I will say, though, is, especially for anyone out there who feels like they're yearning for connection, they're yearning for the sacred, to begin to A, notice it everywhere, and B, give voice to it, like giving voice to the sacred and trusting our own language, trusting, one of the things I try and do, even though I sing in Sanskrit sometimes, is I'm trying to also remind those of us who speak English, like, this is a sacred language too. How can we bring the sacred back into our languaging? How can we use the words that we love to invoke, right? So there's this great saying, language creates the world it describes. So when we speak certain languages, and I know you're multilingual, we describe a very different world. So can we begin to let the beauty and the grace of the world move through us and become spoken by us? And then when we speak that beauty and grace, then we are invokers of the sacred. We're literally calling it forth.
Yes. To do that, we have to switch off the mental, this chatter, how to go to this place where actually just comes out, it pours out of our mouth, like what I've heard when you're singing.
Well, singing is key, for me, just not singing words necessarily, but starting with rhythm and pulse and allowing sounds to move out. Like, if you took my yoga class, for instance, people are just, they're making sounds and and they're just exploring their own voice, because to me, the human body is a profound instrument, and we have to get used to hearing it and practicing with it, and then singing. And then once we allow ourselves to reclaim our voice as artists, as singers, right? Not just the professionals, but all of us, the inherent capacity we have, the inherent yearning we have to sing, to express, once we let ourselves do that, incredible beauty happens. And you're right, we don't even have to think about it. The monkey mind shuts down. And again, as we do this in community, there's this lovely small part of the brain that tells us we're separate from each other. But when we go into rhythmic entrainment, when we go into what's called sympathetic resonance, literally we're syncing up our frequencies. And I don't mean that in a airy-fairy way. I mean that scientifically we could measure that our frequencies begin to find consonance. And the very small part of our brain that tells us we're separate measurably goes to sleep. So when we sing and dance and move together in community, there is A, the monkey mind gets an opportunity to shut down, and B, there's an amplification of the frequency, literally, and it's measurable.
Do you feel at times you're receiving downloads and your DNA is being upgraded? There's like more light coming in, or what is your feeling of being alive right now on Earth when you open up all those channels?
Yeah, I mean, I guess for me, it's that's an interesting question. I have no idea what's happening with my DNA, but I absolutely can say that I am available for something greater than myself, I'll just say, and I'm guessing when I sing or teach, like, there's a part of me that's fully there. There's the unique Suzanne Sterling, whatever I've gone through, which has been an incredibly challenging but beautiful life. All that is mixed in there with, hopefully, some greater mystery that is also moving through me. And on the great moments, that's the case for sure. And I'm just opening myself to it and making sure that I create the right environment for that to happen, not just for me, but for everyone who's involved in the situation too. And I will be honest with you, before shows, I'll go in and I will actually ground the whole space. I will actually try and send roots down to really deeply connect with the earth. Before the show the other night, because I'm in a place where there's incredible spirits everywhere. I asked permission. I was like, ancestors of this land, may I sing these devotional songs here? May I invoke you in these prayers? I'm not just going in and being like, I'm going to impose my will on this culture. And that's the thing I've learned from traveling around the world is when we try and impose ourselves on other cultures, it doesn't work. We get smacked, right? But when we go into other spiritual cultures and we attune ourselves, hopefully really well, to what's happening, not only the human culture, but the spiritual culture, then we humbly say, may I be here? May I be in worship here? May I offer my prayers here? And that, for me, has worked much better in places where the magic is really strong, literally. You know,
especially in places like Bali, how do you feel about it? And there's all those rituals every day that we see people give, and there's the love, and there seems to be quite a lot of spirit, and it's important to have their approval, kind of. They have quite a loud voice around here, these invisible beings.
They do. And, I was here many, many, many years ago, 25 or so, and I came here to specifically feel that almost visceral sense of the spiritual. I felt it in a couple other places in the world. India was strong in some places. Haiti is very strong spiritual underpinning, and yeah, they're here, and they're unlike Westerners' ideas of spiritual beings. And again, like, that's where we go and we humbly say, okay, I don't understand this. I'd like to learn. I'd like to learn how this works. I'd like to learn the belief system. I'd like to learn the energies, and then I can really begin to sing with them and to perhaps have a deeper permission to be here and to do this work of bringing people together.
That's interesting when you say sing with them. I love that. So you feel their presence, you feel how is it all around? Is it up, underneath? Is it everywhere?
To me, it's everywhere. And again, there are different energies, right? There's beings of the underworld, there's beings of nature, there's sky beings. And the Balinese work in concert with them very strongly, very, very strongly. Like they're in deep conversation on a daily basis. And because I don't know that, I'm not going to try and all of a sudden worship in that same way. But I'm going to be attuned to the fact that I don't know what's happening, and I'm going to be attuned to the fact that there may be people I can be in conversation with about that.
Are you ever scared of darker energies or lower energies? How do you deal with that?
Again, I've had some experiences in the world where I went into cultures and kind of went to sleep or didn't pay attention to what was told, and I do think that again, when we're in other cultures, things can happen that are beyond our rational capacity to understand, especially Westerners who like the scientific viewpoint. It's really challenging for us to be like, wow, there's something out there and I don't know what it is. I've experienced that, and so I'm very careful. But at the same time, I'm also kind of like, I don't feel like some entity's going to come and take over my body, right? I feel like I have done enough work to fill my own skin, so to speak, right? There's no space for anyone else to come in, and that's great. But
great feeling.
Happen. Yeah, I think it could happen. Sure. Yeah.
Is there a practice or something that you do in those moments, or when you feel negative, and I'm sure you had moments of depression, of very difficult times. How did you overcome that to be the light woman that you are now?
A lot of help. For me, in my darkest moments, I'm not ashamed to say it. I had a somewhat challenging childhood, and part of the reason why I feel so passionate about helping people find their voice and live their truth and step into the sacred is because I felt like that was missing in my own life, and so I've worked really hard to keep myself awake and not spiral into depression. But I do sometimes, like we all do. I mean, living on the planet today, there's no way we can't be affected by the incredible amounts of slavery and oppression. And I've been, because of part of what I do also as an activist, I've gone to some of the really biggest, I've seen a lot of suffering. I'll just put it that way. I've seen a lot of suffering. I've been with sex trafficking victims. I've been with people who have nothing and are just trying to find their next meal. And so I'm very aware of the fact that there is a lot of suffering. And sometimes I tap into it, and sometimes it feels overwhelming. Sometimes I'm like, I have no idea whether what I'm doing is making any difference at all. And yet I keep going back to that. I'm here to serve. I'm here to serve. And when in my darkest moments, I make that phone call. Like, I pick up the phone and I'm like, I call good friends. I call my coaches. I don't do it alone. That's for sure. I do not do what I do alone. And I'm so grateful that I I mean, it's a privilege to be able to do healing transformational work. It's a privilege to be here at a festival. It's a privilege to have access to all of the spiritual, psychological healing modalities that we do. Like my parents' generation, they didn't have Alcoholics Anonymous. They didn't have, like, there were some things that would have been great. They didn't have them. And so we have such incredible access to these tools. And so I always start every conversation with people who want to serve the world. I'm like, let's start with how absolutely privileged we are to be able to do this. And then can we begin to offer it out to others who perhaps don't have access to it? That to me shifts all of my self-pity and the depression and the insanity of my mind going, why am I here? What am I doing? And then I drop in like, okay, I know there's a few things I'm here to do. One of them is sing. Another one is create ritual. Another one is just serve, serve the suffering. I'm dedicated to that. That's why I came.
You've created many albums and many award-winning albums. Where are you at right now with your music and how is it evolving? What are you up to?
I have done a lot of yoga music in the last 10 years, and I'm just starting a dance album because I used to do electronic dance music with a sort of like a spiritual bent to it. And so I'm just about to make a new album, and I'm feeling into what I want that to be and finding the right producers to do that with me. And so I'm kind of daunted and excited about it at the same time. Yeah.
All open to great things to happen.
Who knows what'll happen? Who knows what'll come? And I'm still continuing to travel. I do lots of festivals like this all over the world, and I've watched this festival culture evolve over the last 25 years. It's been fascinating because when I started,
you've been involved since the beginning, no?
Not with Bali Spirit, but I've been doing festivals for 25 years. And in the beginning, there were music festivals with a little transformation, a little yoga, a lot of drugs. And it's been interesting to watch it shift. And now it's more like yoga music festivals, right? So there's this movement towards transformation. And I actually think people, even though it's a crazy environment, I think people actually are learning things and growing and evolving. And there's a culture that's growing out of these cultures that is moving and shaking in some really interesting ways, innovating.
The ecstatic dance, that's becoming really, really big all around the world, and that doesn't involve drugs or alcohol, and it's just like liberating. You do ecstatic vocals, right, too? So could you just tell us more about that?
For me, it's more like when we sing, when we go into these states of allowing ourselves to be fully expressed, it's better than any drug. It's just pure joy. And again, for many people, there's like a wall of resistance, and there's the part of themselves that told themselves they can't do it, and there's the part of themselves that's scared and vulnerable, and I get all that. But just beyond that wall of resistance, my job is to push people out of their comfort zone into that zone and get them in their bodies expressing. And when they do, it's just pure bliss, pure joy. Yeah. And to me, that is magic. That is ritual, right? And one of my favorite definitions of ritual that one of my teachers taught me is it's the art of changing consciousness at will, right? So you don't need to have an external substance. This is all we need to reach high states of connectivity to, each other, ourselves, the immanent divine that's in all things, and the great mystery. Like, that's all we need is just singing, dancing, moving, ritual, allowing ourselves to be in that state together. In community, that's a big part, in community.
In community and connected to the earth and the Mother Earth and all elements, not just up there.
That's right. It's not just about the sky. It's not just about the sky. It's about us being here, embodied, fully grounded, healthy, fully sexual, fully confident, fully loving, fully expressed, listening to our intuition, connected. Like, it's the whole system. And when people talk to me about, like, I just want to ascend, I'm kind of like, why? This is bliss. Like, if we are really embodied, I had a yoga teacher who said, why is everyone trying to get out of their bodies? Let's get into our bodies and
let's descend, into the matter.
Yes, because it can be fully ecstatic.
Amazing. Thank you, Suzanne. Thank you so much for this delicious interview and time with you. I wish you an amazing journey wherever life brings you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Much love, all delicious co-creators out there. We send you many blessings and love and light from beautiful Bali. Yeehaw!
Bye.